to mark the Lembaga Demografi's 55th anniversary, in collaboration with Forum Kajian Pembangunan or FKP, LD organized series of seminar actually during this August 2019 with ranges of interesting topics that is related to demographic and population issues. So on the first week of this month, we had a seminar discussing about the family planning and contraceptive discontinuation rate, and then for the second week of the month, we had the seminar discussing about the labor mobility and regional development, and then last week, the third week of August, we had a seminar on social justice, and next week on the fifth seminar, we will have seminar about women and employment. And today is the fourth seminar of the month. So today's topic is about the conservatising the Muslim middle class in neoliberal Indonesia. And this topic will be presented by Mbak Inaya Rakhmani. So as you may also read from the flyer or online publication that Mbak Inaya Rakhmani earned Bachelor in Mass Communication from Universitas Indonesia, and then she has also a master degree from Universitas van Amsterdam and PhD from Murdoch University, Australia. And she has many publications, and also the author of Mainstreaming Islam in Indonesia, published in 2016 by Palgrave Macmillan. So without further ado, I would like to invite Inaya to
Thank you and good afternoon. It's really nice being here. Am I clear? Yes, yeah. It's really nice being here to talk about something that I look at very sociologically in the Faculty of Economics. Thank you for Lembaga Demografi for inviting me as one of your speakers for your anniversary, and it's a great honor. I hope I do justice to the stream of events. The presentation that I prepared today is part of a research that I have been conducting for roughly the past 10 years, so since the beginning of my PhD studies. And while I was writing my dissertation, increasingly there is greater presence of Islamic identity, Islamic symbols, Islamic cultural practices in the public arena. And this coincides with Indonesia's second decade of reformasi. So the great question that I had then was why, problematically, during a time of democracy, a time of great market growth, a great consumer growth, great expansion of the middle class, is there increasing presence in religious symbols in the public space, a space that is designed, or at least expected by many people who are fighting for the democratic agenda, for more equality, more diversity, and more pluralism. And this was a concern that's shared by several academics around the world, most prominently Ian Wilson, Mitsnara Mutadi, Burhan Mutadi, also Martin von Braunissen, which signifies this as the Islamic conservative turn, the conservative Islamic turn in Indonesia's democracy. Because the question that they had was, why is Islam, or a religious, political religious group, and this is notably hardline Muslim groups, more prominent in democratic times? And some scholars like Wilson has linked this with social inequality, because great economic growth comes along with greater social inequality. And while economic growth is objective, it's measured by rising income, lowering of poverty, but social inequality means that the richest grow very, very rich, while the majority are stagnating and the poor remain poor. And likewise, until 2019, 1% of the richest in Indonesia own roughly 49% of the total wealth in the country. And this is where religious symbols give hope to those who feel marginalized. By objective data or objective measurements, it may seem that the middle class is growing, it's expanding. So it should be that with greater wealth, with higher education, with greater access to consumer goods, people become moderated. What my study finds is that greater social inequality creates actually more creates stronger belief, stronger attempts to hold on to traditions, to conservative values, to face the ever-changing economic changes, ever-changing economic transformations, ever-changing social world that transform very, very rapidly in an increasingly, this is what I call, and many other scholars call, a neoliberal world. We often listen or hear the term neoliberal, but definitions are very different and not always agreed upon by scholars. What I mean by the neoliberal effect is institutions that provide basic services such as health, education, housing, water, land, that is ideally, quote unquote, provided by the state indiscriminately to everyone by virtue of being born in a country, are increasingly being organized by private institutions. So we see this in, for instance, our higher education system. There are new programs, such as the parallel program, such as the international program, being opened up to gain for more income for the university. The reason for this is because universities also now have to generate their income independently, aside from those sourced from the national budget. This is the slow liberalizing processes of public institutions that need to tap into market mechanisms to make sure that the institutions sustain. And this happens in many sectors that provide basic services and also secondary services. And the services needed by the middle class to have greater upward mobility in this increasingly volatile world and neoliberal world that we all live in. So if you don't have higher education, or if you want to have higher education, you need to go to a state institution, or you need to go to a private institution for quality education. If you want to get quality health services, then you would have to go to a privatized health system or hospital, and you also need to be insured by a private insurance company to get quality health services. And this creates a kind of insecure feeling among the larger middle class, which latches on to religious symbol to adapt to the changing world. And this is why data showing economic growth, the expansion of the middle class, who's grown exponentially in the past 10, 15, 20 years, has come alongside with great social inequality. So this is the Indonesian middle class that I have been studying and I'm talking about. They are the middle class who seek for greater security, greater clarity of law, have more time for leisure, have more time to spend time for relaxation by means of buying consumer goods. In comparison to public institutions or state institutions that are much more privatized nowadays, the consumer sector are heavily market-driven. So if we look at urban planning in great cosmopolitan cities in Jakarta, in Indonesia, for example, Jakarta, the greater Jakarta area, like South Tangerang, like Bandung, like Denpasar or Makassar, all of the large cities monitored by market agencies to study consumer behavior. In these cities, malls are mushrooming, usually at the center of the city or at the outskirts of the city or in gentrified areas. This comes alongside with areas that are actually designed for public spaces, such as gardens, such as common areas where people could interact with difference. These are replaced by shopping malls or department stores. One example would be Semanggi, Plaza Semanggi in Jakarta, which is actually by blueprint is Taman Kota, a city garden. It's now there now stands a shopping mall. So these spaces that, based on urban planning, are supposed to be where people with difference, coming from different backgrounds, interact with each other, are now filled in with shopping malls. The unique space, the unique processes of market mechanisms show that in shopping malls, when one product, for instance, is very, very popular, the formula will be repeated by a second and third and fourth vendor. This is prevalent, most prevalent, or appeared firstly on television. So roughly around the 1990s, the privatized state television system, single state broadcasting system, which turned into 10 dozens of private television stations airing around the clock in a mere span of 10 years by the early 2000s. They used to have, in the 1990s, isolated slots of ustads or religious teachers opening up a session or a ceremony early in the morning. In the 1990s, this happened because television put in religious symbols and religious representation as tokens, as a sign that this television station is also tending to the needs of religious groups, ethnic groups, etc. As market mechanism and consumer goods become more prevalent through advertising, through retail goods, what was once in supermarkets are now slowly arriving at Indonesia, at small shopping stalls across our compounds, housing compounds, and the alleyways of our universities, that in the span of 20 years. Likewise, on television programs that used to be only aired religiously, religious content only aired during the fasting month or only aired during the subuh prayers, slowly become part of the prime time. So these are 2 hours, 4 hours of popular soap operas and melodramas at the height of watching behavior of the middle class. And this happened in 10-15 years. What was once isolated in only half an hour as a token, in 15 years turned into prime time. And the religious symbols that are marketized into television programming show Islamic rituals, show private praying sessions as a scene where the main character, main protagonists, are facing turmoils in their lives and going to religion suicide. And this is what I call the gradual mainstreaming of Islam in public spaces. You can see it in television programs, you can see it in film, you can see it in many other aspects of cultural life. And this is what I mean by market mechanisms pushing in Islamic symbols in middle-class consumers. The core of it, or the main products being sold, are retail global products. These are household products such as detergent, shower soap, shampoo that are produced globally, and they are imported globally, sent in through emerging markets, emerging economies, and to make sure that these products are accepted worldwide with minimum changes to the form. Advertising packages them in a way that makes it easy to accept by the majority group in each country. And in Indonesia, the majority group that has successfully marketized their identity, common identity symbols to public arenas are the Muslim middle class. That's the framework that I use. What I call here is halal consumerism is actually that process. Because the expanding middle-class Muslims find it really difficult or really challenging to adapt to these ever-changing social arenas in which higher education, health sector, housing compounds become increasingly exclusive to those with income, which makes every person part of the middle class needing to make sure that they have the tools, the social tools to maintain their position in the social strata or navigate their way through the neoliberal world they live in. And halal consumerism helps middle-class Muslims to make sure that they are consuming products that are religiously justifiable. So among all of the retail products that are available, and there's abundant of options, consumer options, for example, cough medicine. There are 10 types of cough medicine roughly in Indomaret. How to make sure that the cough medicine that is consumed is good with so many options. The easiest way, the effective way, is to make sure that these cough products or anything that is consumable, it comes in line with my religious belief. That's how the halal label comes to play. And it is what I want to note here is that it's legitimized through market mechanisms. It's legitimized through a state institutions, not a state-sponsored organization called the Indonesia Ulama Council. And those in combination with each other make sure that the Muslim middle class can navigate their way through these changes with halal consumer products. This is a rough chronology of how this came about in roughly 30 years. In the 1980s, MUI, or the Indonesia Ulama Council, was formed by President Suharto at the height of the New Order. By then, at those times, the New Order regime has noticed Muslim intellectuals gaining more education, becoming much more modernized through education, through economic mobility, through social mobility, interacting with their peers from other countries, to maintain or contain the political movement. The president formed the Indonesia Ulama Council that was aimed to moderate Muslim intellectuals and Muslim bureaucrats to make sure that whatever political movement that is taken goes in line with national development. Some of the studies that I recommend here are by Robert Henry. The 1990s, the Indonesia Ulama Council, founded by Syarnas, Badan Syariah Nasional, the national Sharia body, to make sure that any bureaucratic changes or bureaucratic reform that welcomes market mechanisms, because this is when foreign direct investment enter the country, make sure that any standardized measurements go in line with Islamic doctrine. And this was formed to regulate Islamic banking, finances, to issue out halal certification, and also to manage the halal pilgrimage. And in the 2000s until now, MUI has turned into a political vehicle, most notably through the 212 rallies, or the largest mass mobilization that is religiously driven, to defend Gerakan Nasional Pembela Fatwa MUI, the national defenders for the MUI Fatwa. MUI became a national vehicle in a competition between elite closer to the elections. So there are some transformation to the organization that also adapts with the kind of market capitalism that changes in Indonesian society. And as a result, by 2010s until today, there is a market structuration. There is a structure of market mechanisms that is a marrying between bureaucratic measurements of finances, of certifications, of standardized measurements that is state-sponsored or state-driven with market consumerism. And as a result, we can see there are 34 Sharia banks in 34 provinces that is registered nationally. There are 100 travel agencies licensed by the Ministry of Religious Affairs to organize the pilgrimage, 6,000 plus companies owning 7,700 halal certification for 259,000 food and medicinal products, according to the Drug and Food Control, that also cooperates with the Indonesian Ulama Council to certify halal goods, halal labels on consumer goods that's consumable. And there are also certifications for hospital and service businesses, such as e-money, hotel, restaurants, online trading, direct selling, travels, etc. This I published in 2019. What I want to show is there's a large structure, market mechanisms that are pushing Islamic consumer practices or Islamic cultural practices by means of market mechanisms. And this is legitimized by state labels, state institutions, state certification. So when we talk about the increasing visibility of Islamic symbols in public spaces, I argue that these structures are the system or the mechanism in which they were put in place there. So from the various economic sectors benefiting from Sharia financing, Sharia is quote unquote because they are less doctrinal. It's more influenced by bureaucratic processes and political processes than they are informed by academic discourses or scholarly processes. The most significant are trade, restaurants, and hotels. And this are central services in the halal consumer experience. We base our data on a survey carried out by our team of researchers funded by the Australia-Indonesia Council and also by the Ministry of Research, Technology, and Higher Education. We surveyed around 600 participants of the 212 rally to see what their cultural and religious practices are. And likewise, what we found was Indonesia's neoliberal economy undermines institutions that are supposedly, that should provide social security like health, housing, education, and other basic services. Meanwhile, state and private education teaches individual competition. So in a hyper-individualistic society where there is very little social security net, people who fall through the cracks, who are supposed to be caught by social security, need to use part of their income as part of the middle class to make sure that they have social mobility and they have security. And this is much more effectively provided by the market, by halal consumerism than they are by the state. And this creates a division or a social segregation between Muslims and heterogeneous Indonesians. The social effect is, so this is an example, you berhijrah. Hijrah means pilgrimage. It symbolizes a journey toward a more Sharia-based or more holistically Muslim way of life in the modern world. And it is usually organized by middle-class young people who are higher educated. They have their social media community groups, they have offline meetings, they endorse consumer goods and consumer services that are justifiable based on the notion of the hijrah. And this creates a safe boundary according to the needs of each category of middle-class Muslims within their social milieu that ensures that pious Muslims have social mobility in an increasingly globalized world that is also Islamic. The variety of halal products gives us the question of the monolithic version of Islam. It's clearly heterogeneous, the market is clearly diverse, and in fact the market actually provides us heavily customized products according to our needs. These are very basic psychological needs. So one product can be packaged, such as detergent can be packaged in a way that is acceptable to mama, to housewives, packaged to working mothers, based on color, based on the halal label, based on what time it's being advertised, based on what you click on social media. So it's very, very fluid. And at the same time, it creates a structure that makes people more conservative. Every halal food, halal trip, halal soap, halal shampoo, along with the various distribution methods they entail, segregate the Muslim middle class from heterogeneous Indonesians through market mechanisms. And this is what I mean by conservatizing the Muslim middle class. Because at the same time, these distribution methods, I'll take the example of Ibu-Ibu Majelis Taklim or Quranic recitation groups who are middle class. They usually commune once a week. They call in an ustad or a religious teacher to their private houses, and it usually circulates, it's not only in one place, it's not carried out in the mosque, because the mosques are increasingly being taken over by HTI. During the commune, or the religious, the Quranic recitation, usually one of the participants, women, who are marginalized from the labor market because they need to be mothers, at the same time they need to gain income, and this effectively takes them out of the formal labor market, so they need to sell things on social media from their houses. And one of the products that they sell are HNI HPAI, so Halal Network Indonesia, and these are they are usually medicinal product or consumable products like honey, like cough medicine, like soap. And one of the women that I interviewed said that if I buy these products from Haini HPAI, I don't only buy the goods that I need, but I also am buying it from someone that I know. I'm buying it from someone, and it's not only economic transactions, but it's also a social relationship. This is one of the core issues with liberalizing or marketizing consumer retail products, because the social relationships that used to exist before such an open market, highly driven competitive system was the social bonds that create some cohesiveness within the, could be a religious community, or it could be the middle class, or it could be people in one neighborhood. And once, such as Indomaret takes in that space of social bonds in which you can go to a warung or you can go to a traditional stall, and then because you don't have your salary yet, you can take the goods first and then pay next month when your salary is in, because you know the stall owner. This is a kind of social trust and social bond that is actually very fundamental to social cohesion. But when market mechanisms took over, slowly, gradually, in decades, we pay the cashier in Indomaret for goods and we don't know their names. And this is one that Haini HPAI and the Majelis Taklim can provide that neoliberal markets cannot. And that's why the mainstreaming of Islamic symbols become very much appealing to the middle class, because it gives a sense of community and a sense of social bond in which the state or public spaces cannot provide. So here, she said, back to the Sunnah, practice consuming what the Prophet consumed, because HPAI's marketing usually involves PKS, the Tarbiyah movement, and also a political party. So we consume those products. It's Malaysian products, but it's now available in Indonesia. HPAI and others, while mothers are traders. Well, it uses MLM, multi-level marketing, that involves stay-at-home Muslims as members, and also members for personal consumption and not for reselling. So not only selling, the ustad or Islamic teachers also promote to the mothers, and the mothers use them too. They use the products, enjoy it, and help other people too. So you see this as I use this as an illustration of how social relationships and economic relationships become one through the consumption of halal products. And as a consequence, because during this recitation, norms and doctrines are also socialized, it's consistent with the data that we gained from the survey, which is 89% believe women must wear the hijab, 67% believe women are not permitted to divorce their husbands, so these are issues with modern values of gender equality and the family structure. 75% believe wives must submit to their husbands, 67% believes husband may prohibit their wives from working. And working, this is quote unquote, because when you're working from your household, it's not working because you're safe in your domestic space. At the same time though, because the middle class are higher educated, they receive modern education, they are also very rational, they can think about the future, they plan about their finances. That's what is meant by rational. 70% believe polygamy is immoral, 68% believe family planning is good, 75% believe the amount of children is consensually decided, and 43% believe divorce is acceptable. So you see this contradiction in which modern value and partial or selective versions of Islamic doctrine coincide with each other in the personal choices of the Muslim middle class. And through this analysis, that's what I call by conservatizing. So it's not necessarily conservative, but it's conserves certain traditions and certain social norms by means of market mechanisms. Through this analysis, I argue that the intersection between Islamic morality and neoliberal values conserve the traditional social roles of Muslims, as men as the main breadwinner, women as the domestic responsible holder, etc., and that this has paradoxically occurred through market mechanisms expected to democratize or moderate religious authority in freer political and economic times. So, to sum it up, what we can see as a more visible presence of political Islam, I see it from a different angle. I see that it's less about politicizing, it's not only about politicizing Islamic symbols closer to the political elections or electoral politics. It's also a question of all of our consumer decisions on an everyday basis that conserve certain social norms and social authority, religious authority and religious norms that segregates the spaces between those wearing the hijab and not wearing the hijab, those choosing for halal food, not wanting to go to a Chinese restaurant because it might use lard. Those are the everyday decisions that create those social segregations and social divisions. In a very, very extreme way, we can see Islamic housing compounds. We can see also gentrified areas like Bumi Serpong Damai or Depok Karawaci. That is also a different kind of gentrification. So although I'm introducing the idea of an intersection between Islamic morality and neoliberal values are also prevalent in many other kinds of identities. So it's not only within political Islam or Islamic visibility, but also present in different sections of society that are affected by neoliberal changes. So I'll end at that. I hope that was clear and suffice. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Inaya, for sharing your study with us. So we now have next we have the Q&A session. So we can use bahasa Indonesia or English. It's just free. Just really use English or Indonesia, and also please indicate your name, your affiliation, and your questions. So for the first Q&A session, we will have 3 questions first. Yes. Okay. Silakan.
Terima kasih Bu Inaya atas informasi yang menarik yang disampaikan di kesempatan ini. Memang benar sih Bu, kalau kalian
Nama?
Oh ya, nama saya Dinurika Bu dari BPS. Anda bisa memang benar kalau yang akhir-akhir ini kita lihat semua produk semacam sampo kan banyak juga sabun cuci piring dan sabun cuci baju itu semua sudah dilabeli halal ya. Yang ingin saya tahu, apakah di penelitian Ibu juga memperhatikan bagaimana pemerintah menjamin label itu misalnya asli, kan ada juga label itu yang label halal itu ada masa berlakunya ya Bu. Di penelitian Ibu apakah itu juga mempunyai informasi yang besar itu? Saya ingin tahu sejauh mana pemerintah kita itu berperan aktif terhadap fenomena labeling halal ini ya Bu ya. Yang pertama kali. Kasihan juga, kasihan labelnya, apakah pemerintah kita juga mempunyai standar khusus itu kan? Kalau kita lihat label itu sebenarnya gampang kalau di contoh misalnya kalau di online shopping juga kan, mereka juga ada beberapa yang mencantumkan label halal di produknya. Itu gimana apakah itu punya hasil penelitian itu? Saya penasaran. Itu saja yang pertama. Kemudian satu lagi Bu, yang pernah saya alami itu waktu perjalanan ke Pekanbaru Bu. Di sana di salah satu hotelnya itu malah di restorannya mereka punya label halal. Itu yang belum saya jumpai, malah yang di daerah Jakarta ini. Beberapa kali kan kalau kami sudah ada workshop seperti itu kan, itu malah di daerah tampaknya sudah muncul juga label halal di hotel, di restoran. Itu saja Bu, terima kasih. Mohon penjelasan.
Terima kasih. Ya, terima kasih Bu. Ada rekan-rekan lain yang akan menyampaikan ya? Terima kasih. Saya
hadir dari pasca sarjana ilmu ekonomi. Pertanyaan saya adalah selain paradoks dalam hal konsumerisme dari Muslim ini, ada juga paradoks tentang pilihan politik. Jadi kalau dulu waktu pemilihan pertama tahun 55 ini, Partai Masyumi dan Partai Islam mendapatkan suara cukup banyak, hampir 40%. Pada saat itu simbol Islam dan halal belum semarak seperti sekarang ini. Tapi makin ke sini simbol Islam banyak digunakan, bahkan acara-acara kenegaraan. Kalau dulu Bung Karno itu selalu bilang saudara sebangsa dan setanah air, sekarang Presiden itu selalu mengucapkan Assalamualaikum di awal pidatonya. Tapi kenapa kok kemudian Partai Islam makin ke sini makin turun? Apakah kira-kira menurut Bu Inaya apa penyebabnya?
Pertanyaan terakhirnya apa?
Kenapa kok sekarang simbol Islam makin banyak, pergerakan Muslim sepertinya makin kelihatan, tapi perolehan suara dari Partai Islam kok semakin kecil dibanding pemilu tahun depan?
Terima kasih Bu Dia. Ada lagi satu lagi pertanyaan untuk sesi pertama? Ya, silakan.
Saya Muhammad Ruang, saya mahasiswa di FKP Ekonomi Islam angkatan 15. Yang saya tanyakan, sekarang untuk halal itu tidak hanya dipakai sebagai identitas kalau itu untuk orang Islam aja gitu. Bahkan di Indonesia kan dijadikan sebagai marketing gitu. Nah, apakah ada kesalahan di situ value Islam yang dipakai? Maksudnya salah nggak sih ketika halal itu dijadikan sebagai label marketing daripada dijadikan sebagai mungkin substansi halal itu kayak gitu? Apalagi di Indonesia kan gimana ya? Mayoritas kita kan Islam dan pasti apa ya orang-orang merasa itu kalau tinggal di Indonesia pasti ya yakin kalau probabilitasnya itu halal gitu.
Thank you. So, mana?
Untuk Bu Nurika ya, saya nggak meneliti tentang jatuh temponya atau expiry date dari label halal. Saya bisa rekomendasi beberapa kampus dari UGM yang memang melakukan studi tentang itu. Justru yang saya permasalahkan adalah bahwa negara turut memfasilitasi Islamisasi dengan menggunakan lembaga-lembaga publik. Bukan berarti tidak boleh, tapi ada konsekuensinya terhadap kualitas demokrasi dan politik elektoral kita yang berhubungan dengan pertanyaan kedua. Pertanyaan Ibu bagus sekali. Dalam arti itu juga pertanyaan yang sering sekali digaungkan di antara kolega-kolega di Asia Pasifik. Kalau memang politik Islam naik, kenapa partai politik Islam itu turun? Penyebabnya adalah masing-masing partai itu tidak memiliki basis massa yang kuat, konstituen yang kuat. Kenapa? Karena kompetisi antar elit dan juga fragmentasi partai politik dan gerakan-gerakan masyarakat sipil juga pecah dalam arti ketika alamnya sangat kompetitif, alam sosialnya sangat individualistis, maka tidak hanya hubungan ekonomi saja yang transaksional, tapi hubungan sosial pun juga transaksional. Sehingga apa yang kita alami tahun 50-an barangkali gerakan politik yang ideologis, saya mempercayai redistribusi kekayaan dan keadilan sosial, dan kami memiliki waktu untuk berkerumun, berkongregasi, berorganisasi dengan orang yang memiliki ideologi yang sama. Di masa sekarang, untuk mendapatkan pekerjaan tetap saja kita persaingannya sangat ketat. Pasar kerja semakin kasual, banyak yang PKWT dan bahkan bekerja tanpa kontrak di antara yang pendidikannya tinggi. Dan hal itu juga mempengaruhi cara berorganisasi secara politik. Sehingga meskipun secara individual dan personal simbol-simbol Islam makin menjadi pegangan bagi kelas menengah, di saat yang sama simbol-simbol ini dipegang secara individualistis, tidak dipegang sebagai sebuah ideologi yang merekatkan gerakan-gerakan sosial maupun politik. Sehingga meskipun simbol-simbol Islam naik di televisi, di film, di iklan, di ruang-ruang publik, secara fisik kelihatan, tapi di saat yang sama kelas menengah terdidik juga bisa mencatat atau semakin rendah kepercayaan terhadap proses-proses partai politik karena kapitalisme kroni, karena korupsi dan lain sebagainya. Jadi memang ada disconnect dan saya setuju memang ada paradoks. Bukan paradoks tapi ada masalah ya. Kalau melihat ini sebagai dampak dari neoliberalisasi ya bukan paradoks, dia konsekuensi sosial dari kompetisi yang sangat sengit antara individu maupun dari individu sampai tataran elit untuk memperebutkan kekuasaan maupun sumber daya. Terjawab ya pertanyaannya. Untuk yang halal, studi saya sendiri nggak melihat benar atau salah. Saya melihat dinamika sosial, transformasi sosial. Kalau doktrinal, saya menyarankan bicara dengan kawan-kawan dari UIN, Syarif Hidayatullah, ataupun teman-teman dari Jogja yang memang mendalami doktrin keislaman seperti apa yang perlu didiskusikan ulang untuk dunia modern dan global sekarang ini. Kalau saya melihat ya marketing dia pemasaran produk pasti akan mengambil bentuk atau mengambil kemasan yang paling efektif mempengaruhi kondisi psikologis seseorang untuk membeli barang. Jika agama yang mudah atau yang paling efektif maka itulah yang akan digunakan. Jadi pertanyaannya bukan benar atau salah, tapi kecenderungan dan mekanisme pasar seperti itu. Dia akan melihat kelemahan setiap individu butuh apa dan dia akan mengiklankan produk agar pembelian terus berjalan. Jadi dia it takes a life of its own. Sistem yang jalan terus kayak mesin.
Terima kasih Mbak. So for this, we still have much time. So for the second session, for the Q&A session, any questions or comments or inputs or things to discuss?
Selamat siang, saya Pak Rizal dari Inaya. Terkait dengan masalah mengenai konservatisme di kalangan kelas menengah, yang dilihat adanya andil dari sistem kapitalisme itu sendiri. Di sisi lain, kapitalisme menghadirkan keterasingan di masyarakat urban. Tapi pada saat bersamaan, kapitalisme itu juga memberikan semacam alternatif. Yang tentu di masyarakat kita adalah agama. Kemudian agama dijadikan sebagai simbol baru bagaimana sistem kapitalisme itu tetap survive di tengah masyarakat urban dan di tengah juga masyarakat Islam yang mengalami alienasi diri di tengah lagi penguasaan sumber daya ekonomi oleh sedikit orang. Jadi banyak sekali bentuk alienasi dalam konteks masyarakat urban itu sehingga konservatisme saya kira tidak hanya didasarkan oleh doktrin keagamaan, tetapi juga ada faktor struktural dari sistem ekonomi itu sendiri. Yang menarik sisi lain saya lihat bahwasanya kalau kita memisahkan antara signifier dan signifier, sorry ini tidak ada dalam istilah linguistik, antara penanda dan petanda, artinya pada aspek signifier penanda itu diisi oleh sistem pasar. Artinya tolak ukur keberimanan ketakwaan seseorang itu tidak lagi ditentukan oleh otoritas keagamaan, tetapi didorong oleh sistem pasar. Orang dianggap lebih bertakwa, lebih beriman, tergantung sejauh mana ramai dan banyaknya atribut simbol keagamaan yang melekat pada dirinya, termasuk juga identitas ataupun tempat tinggal. Bahkan saat ini saya kira banyak sekali muncul perumahan-perumahan syariah. Saya lihat kemarin datanya yang cukup tinggi di Depok, di Bekasi, dan daerah Jawa Barat juga banyak. Dan itu sisi lain memberi social impact, misalnya orang semakin sepertinya semakin homogen dan tidak terbiasa dengan ruang interaksi yang berbeda, dan itu pada saat bersamaan juga membuat segregasi sosial, kecurigaan yang tinggi terhadap orang yang berbeda, sehingga muncul semacam sikap inferior dan superior. Jadi saya kira kalau tidak ada upaya antisipasi yang serius dari pemerintah, itu bisa membahayakan bagaimana kondisi sosial jangka panjang. Ini tadi saya.
Terima kasih kasih. Tidak ada pertanyaan spesifik ya. Menyampaikan pendapat. Teman-teman yang lain, undangan yang lain ada yang mau menyampaikan pendapat, ide, atau pertanyaan? Yes.
Bahasa Indonesia bisa sedikit. Did you find that it's normalized any other activities or practices that maybe weren't within the traditional roles of Islam that we're doing and still labeled in a religious context?
I didn't get your question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Did you find that it normalized any other practice?
Sorry, name this.
Oh, sorry. My name is Joma. I'm here through the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies. It's an organization located in South Jakarta. I was wondering if you found that it normalized any practices that maybe weren't correlated to traditional Islamic or Muslim roles or within the religion, but were kind of new, but were believed in the religious context.
Normalized practices that didn't traditionally exist.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind, I can make a list, but I will need to reread my data. But one that really jumped off the sheet was the more privatized practices of Islam, such as inviting an ustad to your house, such as having regular Quranic recitations in your neighbor's house. So it's much more personalized and it's privatized, and it leaves behind the mosque as a public space where you would meet people coming from different sections of the class, of social classes. You would meet people, your prayers can be led by an imam coming from lower educated backgrounds or very poor backgrounds, but they have higher religious authority. So the activities in the mosque, the social activities in the mosque, allow more oscillation between social classes. And the practices now that are normalized is bringing home your religious teacher, who you also pay, who also come for a fee. And those religious teachers also have straight up. So there are celebrity preachers who are difficult to call in because they select the kinds of congregations that they can come to. So it's personalized, it's privatized, and it's very political. Because if a political leader, a political party wants to mobilize the religious teacher, it's very easy to use for campaigns, political campaigns. So that is one of the practices that are normalized. Thank you.
Halo, saya Sekar dari Polotical. Saya mau tanya apakah fenomena ini is it exclusively Muslim? Have you found a similar phenomenon, perhaps in another country that is not Muslim? For example, like the Buddhist example in China or something like that. Has that happened in other countries, or is it something that is specific to Muslim countries?
That is also another question that regularly comes around when we have regional workshops. The question is about the failure of democracy all around the world with electoral politics, electoral institutions put in place, and increasing or widening political participation among voters. This is in the United States, Australia, in India. Why is there rising populism that usually or predominantly comes in the form of religious identity or ethnic identity or white nationalism? It's a common theme that can become a red thread to see this issue is identity that touches upon primordial sense of self or basic sense of self, in which from the past, this narrative can help a person who is severely lonely, severely individualized and alienated to imagine a larger community. So it's not something that's uniquely Indonesian. It's happening all around the world because the problem with the quality of democracy and rising populism is one that is happening all around the world, from Brexit, from Trump, from Wuhan, etc. Countries with a strong labor party or a strong party that tries to advocate for redistribution of wealth, because this is the key issue with neoliberal policies. It worsens social and economic inequality, which agitates people and makes people other or segregate themselves from those they see have greater privilege and entitlement than they do. And it's usually the majority, so you have some highlights that is formulaic for a disaster to happen. To answer your question, it's not uniquely Indonesian, but the manifestation is. It comes in the form of a very specific halal practice. It's very different from Middle East, it's very different from the Dubai effect, it's very different from Malaysian Islamic bureaucratization, Brunei bureaucratization. It's very different from Hindutva nationalism and other religious symbols being used for political gain. But the neoliberal problem, the capitalist structure, the inherent contradiction of the capitalist structure, in which wealth is concentrated in the hands of few, that creates social inequality, that creates divisions among the majority, and they fight against each other conveniently while the elite stay in power. Those are structural issues that are prevalent all around the world. So that is my response.
Ada lagi? Itu? Oke, kalau nggak ada, saya ada satu pertanyaan lain. Jadi bukan bahasa Indonesia. Dari Muslim middle class yang Mbak Inaya terlibat di sini, adakah satu pola kelihatan kalau di divide by age group, apakah yang mungkin yang family atau mereka yang sudah lebih keluarga yang sudah lebih dengan komposisi latar belakang yang lebih dewasa, apakah ada perbedaan mungkin practice atau the way they consume?
Di middle class itu sendiri apakah ada karakteristik yang sampai age group?
Saya memisahkannya bukan by demografi. Ironisnya saya presentasi di demografi ya, karena malah ya. Tapi berdasarkan aspirasi. Jadi ada 3 kategori yang saya tulis di buku. Yang pertama, vulnerable middle class. Mereka kelas menengah yang dengan mudah bisa jatuh ke garis kemiskinan kalau ada shock ekonomi. Bisa ini sintesis, jadi bisa diuji ke data yang lebih agregat, bisa tahu siapa kategori sosial kelas menengah yang kalau ada masalah industrial atau jumlah kerjaan atau ada diskusi, itu mereka akan jatuh miskin dan keluar dari kelas menengah. Vulnerable middle class ini praktiknya mereka lebih bukan lebih ya, mereka mengawinkan beberapa elemen dari mistisisme dengan kegiatan keagamaan. Mistisisme dalam arti sesuatu yang sifatnya turun-temurun dari nenek moyang yang menceritakan misalnya makhluk halus atau roh atau yang nunggu di rumahnya untuk memberikan rasa aman terhadap sesuatu yang belum dikuasai secara penuh. Jadi nilai-nilai modern itu terinternalisasi beberapa elemen, tapi di saat yang sama keyakinan turun-temurun itu juga ada dari keluarganya. Mereka kelompok kedua adalah aspiring middle class. Upward mobility-nya sangat tinggi, dalam arti orang tuanya kelas sosial ekonominya di bawah generasi yang berikutnya. Mereka bekerja keras, mereka produktif, mendemonstrasikan nilai-nilai etika Protestan sebetulnya, rajin menabung, tapi juga rajin spending. Karena spending itu juga dilihat sebagai cara untuk meningkatkan status sosial dari barang berharga, dari gaya-gaya, dari make-up yang digunakan dan sebagainya. Mereka memiliki aspirasi mobilitas ke atas yang dan mereka juga sangat mempercayai pendidikan sebagai salah satu cara untuk meningkatkan status sosial mereka itu. Istilahnya zaman sekarang social fiber. Yang ketiga adalah affluent middle class. Affluent dalam arti mereka sudah punya disposable income. Mereka kalau dari commercial nggak jatuh miskin, dan mereka itu juga melihat diri mereka sebagai bagian dari cosmopolitan dunia. Salah satu contoh ilustrasi ya, mereka akan menjadi salah satu pengurus atau peserta Jakarta Islamic Fashion Week, atau mereka akan jadi bagian dari komunitas online hijabers, mereka memobilisasi hijrah, dan seterusnya. Jadi saya melihatnya nggak hanya dari faktor demografi, aspek demografis, tapi melihat dari nilai apa yang merekatkan kelompok tersebut. Di antara tiap kategori yang ada di fringe, ada di pinggir, yang biasanya dibilang social climber itu atau aspiring middle class, yang ada kontradiksinya, misalnya aspirasinya tinggi untuk mobilitas menanjak, di saat yang sama pendidikannya bukan dari kota-kota besar kosmopolitan dan urban. Dia akan punya konsekuensi di milieunya, social milieu atau habitus sosial atau pola pikir sosial dan lingkungan masyarakatnya sebagai seseorang yang lian ya, atau berbeda dari kelompoknya. Jadi kalau dilihat di media sosial gitu, dia wannabe banget gitu, atau dia kok begini tindak tanduknya, itu biasanya nggak masuk ke dalam social milieu tempat dia mau jadi bagian. Jadi yang sering jadi apa ya, topik nyinyir ya sebetulnya fenomena sosial, dan bisa dipelajari secara empirik, dan saya rasa semua pernah mengalami atau pernah melakukan pengamatan ya, mengamatan, karena kalau ada di ruang ini harusnya sih kelas menengah berbasis pendidikan punya waktu luang untuk diskusi tidak wajib, mungkin punya aspirasi menanjak dan lain-lain. Jadi mudah-mudahan sintesisnya bisa kepakai sebelumnya.
So we still got plenty of time. Ada yang mau sharing perspektifnya atau ide atau ada pertanyaan, diskusi? Oh ya.
Halo semuanya, nama saya Desmond, saya masih mahasiswa di Fakultas Hukum Sarjana. Jadi saya mau nanya tentang yang tadi ada perumahan khusus Islam misalnya. Apakah fenomena itu fenomena yang patut pemerintah atau kita bersama khawatirkan, atau fenomena itu cuman fenomena sementara karena mungkin tokoh-tokoh yang diidolakan atau ustadz-ustadz yang diidolakan beridentitas Islam. Maksudnya kalau misalnya nanti jualan dalam tanda kutip jualannya nasionalisme, mungkin beda lagi fenomenanya apa. Jadi pertanyaan saya, apakah itu cuma fenomena sementara karena mungkin tokoh-tokoh sekarang jualannya agama, atau itu bakal dengan meningkatnya lepas ke tahun-tahun berikutnya bakal makin banyak tuh perumahan yang beridentitas tertentu. Sekian.
Boleh dikumpulkan dulu pertanyaannya kalau ada lagi. Oh iya, sekian.
Okay, my name is Jasmine Isabin. I'm research assistant in the Demografi Institute. I'm sorry if somebody already asked about this one, but I want to answer that. In your study, does this commodification of religion affecting several Islamic groups, or maybe it's more affecting like moderate Islamic who live in urban area, or someone or more affecting groups that so Islamic traditional who educated in traditional Islamic school or somewhere, and a basis of Nahdlatul Ulama or something like that. Okay, from my observation, this commodification is more affected to those groups who living in urban area and something like Islamic hardliner or somehow in some cases the fanatics one. Whether do you find that this commodification also affecting those traditional groups? Thank you.
So one more question. Pertanyaan mengenai perumahan Islam, apakah serius perlu diwaspadai atau akan berubah seiring dengan tren pasar? Karena saya melihat relasi sosial, dinamika sosial, konsekuensinya ada pada ketika seorang anak yang besar di perumahan Islam tidak pernah mengenal orang secara fisik selain dari agamanya sendiri. Dan ini agama plus dari kelasnya sendiri. Jadi coba bayangkan juga orang Islam kelas menengah bawah yang dikenal hanya pembantu di rumahnya. Padahal yang tinggal di basis pesantren di Jombang sama di Sukabumi itu jauh berbeda karakteristiknya, dan sama dan bagian dari heterogenitas bernama kelas menengah muslim ketika tergentrifikasi atau terisolasi dalam area yang perumahannya itu dijual ke kotak-kotak kafling-kafling sesuai dengan kelas yang dituju, maka homogenisasinya prosesnya terjadi sehari-hari dan dampaknya ada pada generasi anaknya karena dia nggak mengenal secara fisik orang selain kelompok sosial yang dia tinggal dalam itu. Kemungkinan besar juga atau secara signifikan dia juga orang tuanya akan memilih sekolah-sekolah tertentu untuk anaknya yang biasanya dari lapisan kelas yang sama. Jadi ada dua hal yang perlu dipermasalahkan, adalah pembentukan karakter, pembentukan kebiasaan, konstruksi sosial yang tumbuh kembang di anak-anak zaman sekarang, kelahiran 2010 ke atas, 2008 ke atas, yang mengenali hanya satu kategori sosial. Sehingga kalau dia berbeda pendapat dengan orang yang secara fisik, secara ras itu sangat beda dengan dia, atau keyakinan Islamnya sangat beda dengan dia nggak tahu cara menyelesaikan masalah karena sehari-hari nggak pernah berinteraksi, jadi nggak pernah bersosialisasi. Plus karena saya juga orang pendidikan, saya melihat ini ada efek jangka panjang. Karena ya akan terkonfirmasi dari belajar di sekolahnya, dari guru sekolahnya, guru ngajinya, guru lesnya, orang tuanya, teman-teman sekolahnya, teman main di kompleksnya, dan seterusnya. Dia akan menciptakan membentuk bubble yang akan menjadi masalah di masa yang akan datang. Jadi saya menganggap ini masalah yang laten ya, dia nggak kelihatan karena seolah ada yang darurat, tapi jangka panjang gitu dampaknya karena mempengaruhi pola pikir generasi berikutnya. Regarding the commodification of Islam, what I problematized in my book was the political consequences of political decisions. What may seem as a harmless consumer choice decision has conservatized the middle class to a point where they participated in the 212 rally. I only can guess that it does also affect the middle class Muslim that come from a more rural, peri-urban background in a very different way because it's part of the same structural problem. They are also trying to be part of the labor market, but they're intensively casualized. They want to have access to higher education for upward mobility, but the types of norms, social norms that are internalized through the Islamic religious education system under the Ministry of Religious Affairs, under NU, under Muhammadiyah, is very different from the social constructs that are internalized through private schools in Jakarta, sekolah unggulan in Jakarta, or in Bandung, or in Makassar. So the question is, my study is for this type of middle class, but I would propose that the thesis stands, but manifests differently in the pesantren educated middle class and hardline Islamic groups who are higher educated.
Terima kasih. Nama saya Isa dan saya dari FKP.
saya punya dua pertanyaan Mbak Inaya. Yang pertama adalah, maaf saya datangnya pelan-pelan, saya nggak tahu apakah itu sudah dijelaskan atau belum. Yang dimaksud dengan konservatisme ini apakah lebih soleh atau lebih tradisional atau lebih kemana, dan sekarang petanya seperti apa di Indonesia? Itu yang pertama. Karena kalau misalnya kita bahasakan konservatisme adalah lebih soleh atau lebih tradisional, bisa jadi definisinya beda, konsekuensinya beda. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua adalah Indonesia itu baru punya lembaga baru namanya BPJPH dan negara jadinya berkala atau gitu. Sebenarnya diskusi yang sering berkembang di BPJPH adalah kesulitan mereka untuk bisa membuat para penjual atau produsen itu bersertifikasi produk halal mereka. Karena apa? Karena itu nggak ada permintaan dari market, kurang lebih itu. Mungkin bedanya adalah kalau misalnya negara-negara yang ramah halal kayak Korea Selatan ataupun Jepang, mereka berbondong-bondong untuk bisa mensertifikasi produk yang halal karena banyak wisatawan asing dari negara muslim dan mereka. Artinya ada market demand di sana produk itu. Akhirnya mereka merespon itu dengan mensertifikasi produk halal mereka. Tapi Indonesia yang 87% orang penduduknya adalah muslim, semua orang menganggap environment kita environment halal, kurang begitu. Kita nggak pernah nanyain apakah kalau kita makan di restoran Padang ini halal nggak, kurang begitu nggak pernah ada tulisan halal di restoran Padang. Karena bisa jadi kita menganggap semua makanan Indonesia relatif halal. Nah, pertanyaan saya adalah seberapa efektif penggunaan label halal untuk merubah consumer behavior di masyarakat Indonesia di hari ini? Terima kasih.
Mengenai konservatisasi, tadi saya jelaskan, konservasi itu memelihara nilai tradisional, salah satunya terlihat di survei yang dijalankan terhadap partisipan 212 itu khususnya terlihat di struktur keluarga, datanya sudah saya presentasikan, dan ada bedanya antara tradisi dengan konservasi nilai. Konservasi nilai itu nilai-nilai yang selektif dan parsial masih berguna untuk menghadapi atau bernavigasi di alam sosial modern. Dan dia itu tidak sepenuhnya mengakar pada doktrin-doktrin keagamaan atau mazhab-mazhab tertentu. Kenapa? Karena kalau ideologis kaku, dia nggak bisa beradaptasi dengan kondisi kondisi sosial yang cepat sekali berubah. Makanya harus selektif dan harus parsial, harus dicacah, harus diinjil beberapa kode-kode agamanya supaya menjustifikasi keputusan dan aman gitu ke depannya masuk neraka. Berkenaan dengan itu, soal ketakwaan juga ketakwaan selektif dan parsial sesuai dengan kebutuhan sosialnya. Dan proses sertifikasi label halal di Indonesia karena juga kurangnya sebenarnya lembaga pendidikan tinggi yang juga memiliki basis riset yang kuat. Beberapa negara yang memang punya sistem kekhalifahan seperti Iran misalnya, kesarjanaan Islamnya sangat kuat. Profesornya memang orang-orang terpelajar yang mengumpulkan ulang isi Quran, ya lepas dari kenyataan dia menjustifikasi rezim itu hal yang lain lagi. Kalau di sini yang lebih efektif adalah birokratisasi pendidikan tinggi, sehingga kalau ada penelitian akademik yang baik, kualitasnya dia baik produk dari sistem, bukan produk dari sistem. Itu yang saya jelaskan juga tentang birokratisasi label halal tadi di sini. Sehingga konsekuensinya ketika ada pemasaran Islam, kalau dibilang bukan hubungan sama takwa, ya iya dan enggak gitu. Karena saya melihat tindakan sosialnya, melihat eksternalisasi dari kebutuhan individu ke dalam apa yang dia percaya, norma yang dia pegang, tradisi apa yang dia percaya, dan dia pakai ini gimana caranya di dunia sosial. Sehingga kalau sertifikasi itu nggak berhasil, saya akan justru setuju gitu. Justru label halal sangat berhasil. Yang kedua adalah birokratisasi sertifikasinya, karena lembaganya sangat sentralistis. Pemikiran negaranya juga NKRI itu juga sentralistis dan nggak efektif karena gerak cepat market itu jauh lebih efektif, lebih membekas di individu. Dan individu juga merespon ke mekanisme pasar dengan sangat cepat, sementara birokrasi juga reformasinya sangat lambat karena memang karakteristik institusinya seperti ini. Kalau mau disambung pertanyaan lagi silakan, karena kelihatannya perspektif yang saya pakai dengan pertanyaan agak ada gap.
Udah respon?
Ya. ada lagi Bapak Ibu yang akan sebelumnya? Baik, kalau tidak ada, so we can conclude this today's session. So let's give big round of applause for Inaya. It's very interesting Kampus with us. So Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita akan masih ada satu lagi seminar yang akan diadakan oleh Demografi bekerjasama dengan Forum Kajian Pembangunan minggu depan tanggal 29 Agustus. Akan ada 2 presenter yang akan menyampaikan sharing studinya terkait women and employment. So once again, let's give big round of applause for